So first of all, a short introduction from our side about the Europe Jams. They are part of the European Public Sphere project, and usually we tour around Europe to gather people under a wooden dome to talk about different topics and have a discussion. But with the current situation, we can't do that. So we decided to try this project online. And so we want to collect all of your ideas and thoughts on the future of Europe in form of an online exhibition and present those ideas directly to the European Commission. And also I'd like to add here that this project is funded by the Alfred Töpfer Foundation. And today in our special edition Europe Jam, we would like to talk about Europe and the Western Balkans. And since I'm not an expert in the field, I'm super happy that all of you were willing to join our session tonight and that you were willing to share your thoughts. And just as a short notice, usually our session ends at 8, but since we have so many guests today, we want to give the opportunity to extend our time till 8:30 if necessary, but you can just decide for yourselves for how long you'd like to join. It's totally up to you. And so I'm very excited for our discussion today. And now I'm giving over the word to my colleague, Josie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josie. I also work for Democracy International. I'm really happy to see so many faces. Yeah, so to make sure that everyone can speak and discuss their minds, under the participants button, you can find the virtual raise your hand feature. So if you have a question or a comment, just click on it and raise your hand virtually, but please wait until the last person to speak has finished. Now, to get started, I think it would be good when all of the speakers would shortly introduce themselves and tell us about their work. As we are lucky to have so many stakeholders from different areas of the field, we have included 2 introductory questions. The first question is, what do you think are the main issues regarding the EU and the Western Balkans? Followed by a second question, what is your suggested approach to solve these issues? And after each introduction, you can ask questions which refer directly to the speaker's content. But generally, we would like to have a bigger discussion after the introduction round. And the bigger discussion afterwards will be very open and free. And you can just hand over the floor to the next person by yourself. And the next person who wants to add a comment or has a question just continues. Yeah, I think that's all from my side right now. And let's get started. Does anyone wants to start? Or maybe Anna, do you want to start and introduce yourself? Anna?
So it's me, okay, because we are 2 Annas here. Hi, everyone.
Just if it's okay for you.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for organizing this event. I'm very happy that the organization responded positively, since Western Balkans is a region that has its future on European Union, not geographically, but it also belongs there due to what it represents and the vision of European Union as well. So a short introduction about me. I'm Abdi. I'm from Tirana, Albania. I'm actually a political activist. I've been active in politics since I was 15. I started my activism in the youth structures of the Socialist Party. On the meantime, I was also active on NGOs and have been an active participant of many European NGOs that offer non-formal trainings with the Council of Europe, which also helped me in the future to achieve my future goals in politics, and also helped me to broaden my contacts. Then the Socialist Party of Albania launched in 2016 national campaign for the youth leader. Believed in this format, and I applied. After that, I was appointed as vice president, and I took care for the foreign affairs department for the youth forum. Then, due to my engagement and the proposals and being always active with civil society, with the forum, and as well as trying to put my engagement also with the international organizations and sister parties. I was promoted as Deputy Secretary for International Affairs in the Socialist Party. Then I saw that I needed to make maybe upwards to my career, and I applied for a traineeship in the European Parliament. I joined the S&D group there, and I worked for Sustainable Development Goals near the S&D group. Then I got also the chance to apply as a Together Ambassador, which is an initiative of the group. And this also helped me broaden my contacts, because I participated in many events that the group organized, especially during the European elections, where we talked in different European cities about the goals and different topics that the progressives covered. Now I'm as a researcher for Western Balkans and EU enlargement policies, and I'm doing also an executive master near CERIS, which is the diplomatic school of Brussels that has a joint cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So basically this is it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Does anyone wants to continue? If not, I think maybe Hannes, do you want to continue and introduce yourself and tell us about your work?
Yeah, I can do that, as I was also for some years president of the S&D group. It is in some way connected to the speaker before me. Now, I was for 18 years member of European Parliament until 14, and then I didn't run again. In this function, I was vice president of the delegation for Southeastern Europe. I was rapporteur, for example, also for Macedonia. That was at the time called now North Macedonia. And I was a rapporteur accompanying the whole process of accession of Croatia. Since 14, I am president of the International Institute for Peace here in Vienna. What we do, for example, in relation to this is that we organized people of young group, and some of them, I think, also participating in order to present ideas of the youth for the Balkans. So my knowledge about the formalities and the formal structures and all the diplomatic issues and so on showed me that in the end of the day, we need the people, the citizens themselves, and especially the younger citizens, to fight for their own countries and the well-being and the living conditions and so on. But we can discuss this later. So I'm very happy, and thank you for the invitation. And I think we will have a very good constructive discussion. I'm very happy about the engagement of the younger generation, because that's very, very important, as the elder generation often fails to do their job.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Elisa, do you want to continue?
Yes. Hello, everyone. First of all, on the behalf of Balkans Youth Council, I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity. I am Elisa, currently serving as Deputy Secretary General of Balkans Youth Council. For those who may not have heard yet, Balkans Youth Council is a regional organization and public diplomacy mechanism which is operating in the field of education, innovation, environment, and renewable energy. Through these main fields, we offer and promote opportunities, internships, exchange programs, conferences, trainings, workshops, and job opportunities. As Balkans Youth Council, regarding the concept of projects, we work in two main lines. We create the projects from zero, but we also work in existing ones. Since 2017, the Balkan Youth Council has brought a significant influence and contribution in developing and improving the professional growth of the youth in Balkan region by hosting more than 65 international events in the field of education, innovation, environment, renewable energy, diplomacy, politics, law, media, finances, economy, entrepreneurship, and foreign languages. And through these events, we have hosted more than 6,500 participants from more than 30 different countries. Our work philosophy is divided in several platforms created by Balkan Youth Council, which keeps connected the youth of Balkans with the rest of the world, such as the Day Platform, which is a regional mechanism in the form of open lecture series, where we have invited businessmen, entrepreneurs, politicians, government officials, lawyers, technology stakeholders, and until now we have hosted 20 platforms in Western Balkan countries, where we have welcomed more than 3,500 participants from this region. Secondly, we have created a Plus Education platform, which its mission is to support the key teachers and tools that are experts in promoting the principles of a qualitative education in Western Balkans. We want from teachers to give the best model practices and to connect them with useful resources. Plus Education platform connects together teachers from Albania, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Turkey, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and all those foreign teachers who work in Western Balkan country schools. As a result of this project, until nowadays, we have organized 3 training workshops and 2 annual conferences, where in total we had around 1,500 participant teachers. But the most important one is that we have created a database of more than 6,000 teachers in the whole region. Thirdly, we have based our philosophy work in the exchange programs, or let's say our vision for public diplomacy, where we have organized youth simulations of G20 Summit, Arab League, Economic and Social Council of United Nations, World Bank Conference in different countries like Albania, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Lastly, we have been allowed voice in informing and inspiring youth to be part of different activities, competitions, and exchange programs in the region and more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to remind you that you can totally answer the questions about what are the main issues regarding the EU and Western Balkans and what are your suggested approaches to solve these issues. So in your introduction, you can totally go on and tell us about your ideas.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I continue?
Sure.
Yeah. Regarding to the concept of European Union integration and Western Balkans, I think that the major problem is lack of mechanism and mentality in order to fix the categories of problems which are prohibiting the European integration of Western Balkans. Through Balkan Youth Council activities, we have met hundreds of young professionals and we have heard their conclusion on this matter. But what does this mean? Let's start with a problem example, which is nationality, ethnicity. For us as Albanians, it's easier to communicate, agree, or work with an Albanian living in North Macedonia or an Albanian living in Montenegro, rather than with a Macedonian in North Macedonia or Montenegrin in Montenegro. I don't want to enter in deeper details on politics because I'm talking in the perspective of a young professional, but when I mention the lack of mechanism, I mean that we need to create platforms and mechanisms through where we can teach and learn the real history, geography, and to take the best examples of our potential and to exchange with the others between countries. Another important issue is democracy. Currently, Western Balkan countries are declared democratic countries, showing higher or lower levels of applied democratization. It's true also that exist also many bilateral issues within the region, although the relations between states, in my opinion, are still burdened by past wars. In order to advance in these relations and to gain access to European Unions, Western Balkan states need to solve crucial issues like border issues and the respective countries and the problems of refugees. I think these are the main issues that I wanted to discuss with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I also see that we have Ditmir Bushati with us. Would you like to continue?
Well, hello everyone. I hope I'm being heard well, and I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me into this forum. Hello, Hannes Svoboda. a good friend of Albania and a good friend of the region in very difficult days. And hello, Yanis from Greece. When the student was speaking about the regional disputes, I immediately had in mind also the work we have done jointly in the past and the work we are still doing on different capacity. I couldn't agree more with Elisa. She was a Euro optimist, and you find nowadays some Euro optimism coming from Balkans because European Union is absorbed a little bit with its own problems. But very shortly, I would like to point a few elements which I believe are important for Western Balkans and European Union. First, there is a need to speak about the political finality of the European project, because most of debates about Western Balkans, I fear, are not very frank. I remember 2003 in Thessaloniki, we are all together, and from all countries that have been invited into the table in Thessaloniki, only Croatia joined European Union. So it is high time for European Union, instead of experiencing alternative models and coming up with new methodologies and more paperwork, to make a bold decision, at least about the 10 years or 20 years, about the future of the Union, and to speak about the political finality. This, I know, it's a hot potato for European Union and also for the neighborhood, because it might send also a signal to Turkey's hopes for joining European Union, although one might admit that under Erdogan, especially the recent years, hopes for joining European Union have faded away also in Turkey. The second element which I would like to share with you is in relation to the need for an economic resilience in the Balkans, which is and which should be seen in close connection also with the rule of law related reforms, because we have to speak more about convergency elements. You are all young now. We are living into a digital era, and it is very difficult to convince young people to stay in the Balkans and to build their own future here in the Balkans. That's why we need to bridge this gap between the average of European Union and Western Balkans. So in order to bridge this gap, we need to have more investments, and investments need to reach the point of 25% of the current GDP, which is something unimaginable right now. I used to say as a politician that people do not eat chapters. So I can go into my constituency, I can say to them that, look, we are about to start the first intergovernmental conference. There are this and that benchmarks. Then we have the first chapters. Now it's not anymore with the chapters, but it's with clusters. But politics is basically everywhere the same. It's about bread and butter. And I'm afraid that nowadays we have reached a point where it is very difficult to sell the European project with concrete initiatives. And the narrative is still there, especially in countries like Albania. There is no alternative to EU membership. There is no party that advocates an alternative route. But I'm afraid that now the European project is competing in the Western Balkans with the influence of organized crime and the money coming from corruption. And this is why I do believe that we need to see rule of law or economic development in close tandem with rule of law, because there is no rule of law without economic development, and there is no sustained economic development without rule of law. Third element, which is very much connected with the second element, is the democratic threat. We are missing the agents of change. I do belong to different generations, and I have had the opportunity to work for this process or on this process from different angles. I was a civil servant, and I was heading the state delegation for the Stabilization Association Agreement negotiations with the European Union. I've been part of civil society, so basically monitoring the reform process in the country in view of the accession process of Albania. And as a foreign minister for 5 years and a half, I was on the driving seat of this process. And what I've noticed is that we are lacking the agents of change in our society and the role models. In this respect, I see Donika on the same platform, and I really envy Kosovo because it's more dynamic, it's younger, and at least is trying also to see various offers on the table, apart from the same soup that have been eaten or tested for the last 20 years. When it comes to Albania, you see that life is given only once, and people are trying to embrace the European standards by leaving the country. So by going into European Union, and this for me it's an existential threat that is shared across the region. You see also other countries suffering from the same threat. But here I believe we need to put more emphasis on the human dimension element. So more exchange programs, especially at university level, more money for researchers. More money for an economy which is based on knowledge rather than cheap labor, as we have seen, especially in the recent years, in order to motivate people to build their own future in the region. And my very last comment is in relation to what I have called comfort zone. 10 years ago, we were noticing a situation where we're living in a comfort zone. So basically, after 2004 and 2007 enlargement, EU was not, or enlargement was not the most popular game in town among EU capitals. And Western Balkan leaders were pretending that they were engaging into a set of reforms. Now we see a blame game. So it's not anymore the comfort zone, but we are experiencing a blame game. On one hand, the European Union is saying to countries like Albania that you are not yet ready to start the accession journey, although this has been promised since 2016 and then 2018 with a very clear, straightforward recommendation coming from the Commission, a text that has been unanimously adopted in the Council, and then ratified in 2020, but still there is no accession journey. Not to mention North Macedonia, that has not been rewarded for the courageous, let's say, political leadership that has demonstrated together with Greece in this process. And then you see nowadays also the other blame coming from us, that's saying that we have done everything we have been asked for, but because EU is busy with its internal quarreling, the process is not moving on. And in this context, it's sometimes very difficult for rational people to channel their voice and to come up also with a more moderate scenario about the transformation process of countries and transformation process of our societies. There is, I believe, a good news with the new administration in the United States. And I hope there is going to be more synergy between United States and European Union in order to reinforce a little bit their position in the Balkans and to consider the transformation process as an unfinished business and when I speak about transformation process, I really mean the day when all Western Balkans 6 will join European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Maybe Donika, you want to continue?
Sure, I somehow imagined you would jump to Yanis before me, but thanks. I'm very happy to be part of this platform, and it's refreshing to be among young people, those who have, like, not a younger generation, because I don't want to, assume that any of us is old. I mean, thanks for the invitation. I'm very happy to be part of I mean, also here in a group with Ditmir, Yanis, and of course Hannes, and I see Stephanie here, and I see a lot of familiar faces who I have worked with in the past. I mean, as you know, like, I'm Donika Emine, I'm from Pristina, Kosovo. I'm currently leading an NGO, which serves as a secretariat, membership-based NGO, which gathers 270 organizations. And back in 2007, when I was only starting my work in the NGO sector in Kosovo, Civicos has signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of Kosovo, and we, as a platform, coordinate the work of civil society with the government. This is okay normally, but in Kosovo we change governments every 6 months or 1 year, which then makes my work very challenging and not so comfortable, and also it decreases the level of impact, because you really have to change governments and change people you have to talk to, people you advocate to, and so on. Additionally, I'm doing my PhD in London as well, which definitely is easier than working in Kosovo and trying to coordinate CSOs and the government. When Ditmin mentioned the Thessaloniki summit, I'm just currently writing my chapter, and I was deconstructing what was happening in Thessaloniki, and then I see Đukanović, and back in 2003 I was really young, and I was like, how come? Why was he there? And then I realized that he hasn't changed. He came to power when I was born, and Đukanović is still there. So one of the biggest challenge of the Balkans and the EU is the political elites in the Balkans. I mean, I will start from the Balkans because it's super easy to blame the EU, and especially Brussels. I mean, not specifically member states, but when it comes to Brussels, it's being criticized by the member states, by the citizens of the EU. And of course, I mean, there is a lot of room for criticism, but I will start from the Balkans because we are the countries that in a way have been shaped in the past 20 years to fit into the Union. So if we are trying to do so, at least on paper, then why aren't we doing the right things to actually move things forward? If you look, back in history, it's only Croatia that made it to the EU, and now we have the front runner, which is Montenegro, who has been, sort of shaken by the sudden change, because when Đukanović is not, in power, then the entire country says, now what? What do we do? We have been, together since forever, and this is how the political elites actually in the Balkans have, in a way, functioned. They capturing the state, building a system in which, without them or any potential change, would be threatening to their system. This is what happened in Kosovo in March, when the Kurtis government, which was like 55 days old, was ousted by the old political elite, who was pretending to be pro-EU and pro-Americans, but the only reasoning behind it was just to continue the state capture and the way that Kosovo has been governed in the past 20 years. So fearing reforms, because with reforms, then a certain a group of people in Kosovo would lose their privileges. So one of the first elements I want to mention is the rule of law and democratization, something that we internally have failed to do, and we have entered in the vicious cycle in which we don't know how to get out. And this is halting the not just the EU integration perspective for the region, but also is tremendously decreasing the quality of life in Kosovo. I mean, Ditmir mentioned the fact that young people leave, and this is also the trend in Kosovo. I mean, in Kosovo, there is, of course, a dynamic. There is, of course, still a lot of room to discuss. Vibrant civil society, still plural media, but not so much plural in their narratives. But there is no perspective. So not just, and in Kosovo, we had waves of people leaving, but this time, middle class, doctors, people who have good jobs here are leaving. So it's not just about their jobs, it's about living in dignity. And this is, you know, what I have been sort of facing with since I've been locked in Kosovo since March. So you really get, you know, to feel overwhelmed when you continuously have to deal with the challenges of living in the Balkans. And I believe that this is the case, plus minus something, in all Western Balkan countries. The second one is lack of genuine approach, also by the EU. We have always seen from the security perspective and stability perspective. I mean, it was just a while ago when France had a Western Balkans strategy in which Croatia and Slovenia were part of, and the first, you know, thing that you would see in the strategy was security and stability. The wars have ended, and conventional wars are very less likely to happen now. There are different challenges that we are facing now, in which the EU also has to update the way that they view the region. When I was looking at the Thessaloniki summit in the period when the EU was expanding, and now the EU calls for resilience, is kind of shrinking and trying to sort of build defense mechanisms instead of, you know, being this transformative power that it used to be. And this is, I think, halting the EU integration process. Also, ruling by example is one of the challenges when it comes to Western Balkans. I have sat in so many tables in which, when the EU people have complained about the level of democracy in the EU, the Balkans representatives would go with excuses such as Hungary and Poland. It was Globsec when an ambassador complained about, you know, like killing a journalist in Montenegro, and it was a Montenegrin representative who said just a while ago a journalist was killed in Bratislava too. So, and this is, you know, leading by example has been missing also because the EU has been dealing with a lot of issues, and the democracy in general has been sort of shrinking globally. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but with the COVID pandemic, every problem we had in the Western Balkans have been also amplified, you know, and Ditmir mentioned the importance of economic transformation, and in Kosovo 200,000 jobs have been lost, and this is something that we hardly discuss, and we are still not seeing the detrimental impact that the pandemic has had in Kosovo, and kind of just plunging from one political crisis to another without offering a solution. Kosovo is going to have elections soon, in 2 or 3 weeks. We are changing our fourth government since 2019. And this speaks volumes about the genuine approach that the country has had towards the integration process. Now, I'm using this example because if you look at the perceptions towards the EU integration process, then you will see that Kosovo is pro-EU. I think the most pro-EU country in the region. If you look at the statistics, it's probably 90+% of people who actually support the EU membership of the country. This is also applying to the political elites, but it's only in their narratives and not in their actions. If you change governments every year or 6 months, it's impossible to have genuine approach towards reforming, genuine approach towards EU integration process or strategic partners, and it's almost impossible to have good results. For now, the most challenging thing, I think, also not just for Kosovo and Serbia, but for the region, is how the EU tackles the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue, how the EU tackles the visa liberalization process for Kosovo, because, I mean, this is not just Kosovo-centric, but this is the messages that the EU keeps sending to the region. I mean, just last year we were devastated by what happened to North Macedonia and Albania, and the fact that now Bulgaria is, sort of reinventing or inventing a dispute just to block a Western Balkan country. And if the trend continues, then I'm fearing that the EU will lose its leverage and thus its transformative power. What should have been done? I mean, first looking at our political elites. I started with political elites, and the change should come from within. We should really have ownership in the process. Everything that is in relation to the EU membership should come organically derive organically from the region and from the countries. I mean, the EU is an outside actor. It tries, it helps, it facilitates, it offers assistance, but there is not much that the EU can do. I mean, they cannot keep sanctioning and isolating, because at least for Kosovo, what can happen more? I mean, we are isolated. We have no EU perspective. I mean, is there any other way to punish Kosovo? I don't think so. So it
Danica,
really derived. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I really feel that your input must be continued in the discussion, because it's really, really important. Okay. But we have to continue the introduction round.
Oh, sorry.
So we can go on and discuss, because it's really, really important what you're saying. And we have to come back to it later in the discussion to get more into it, and that everyone can also add something. Is that okay for you? Okay, so let's jump to Jonas and continue the introduction round so that we can go into the discussion and talk about the important points.
Thank you, Josephine. Thanks very much for the invitation. My name is Ioannis Armakolas. I'm based in Athens. I'm assistant professor at the University of Macedonia in Thessaloniki, senior research fellow and the head of Southeast Europe program at ELIAMEP, which is the biggest think tank, foreign policy think tank in Greece. And I'm also this year's Europe's Futures Fellow at the Institute for Human Sciences in Vienna. And I'm the editor-in-chief of two publications that I would really like to invite you to visit and read. One is the Southeast Europe program, the Southeast European Studies, Southeast Europe and Black Sea Studies, published by the Taylor and Francis in the UK. And the other one is Political Trends and Dynamics in Southeast Europe, published by the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Regional Office in Sarajevo, covering the entire Balkans, but also Turkey and Cyprus. I don't want to go on for much longer about the questions that you posed, simply because I would like to hear more about from our colleagues from the Western Balkans, like Donika and others, and also because we have Dietmir and Mr. Svoboda, Hannes Svoboda, and they are very experienced, and I really would like to hear more. 2 points only. 1 point, the main problem. I mean, you can identify obviously many issues like elites, captured states, rule of law issues, but I will focus on something which is a bit more elusive, but I think it's crucial, that the two sides, the EU and the Western Balkans, are diverging in terms of visibility and perceptions about their connectedness. The period that Donika mentioned or Dietmir mentioned 10 or 15 years ago, it was almost like inevitable, or like it would go without saying that the Balkans would eventually be part of the European Union. This is not the case anymore. Both the Western Balkans do not see this as inevitable, and they are frustrated every day. And the EU, and especially at the level of societies and many political elites, do not anymore see as an inevitable end of the road the accession of the Western Balkans. And I think this is a crucial thing we need to change. It's ideas, it's perceptions, it's not reality, it's not the rule of law, it's not economics, which like Donika and Dietmir and others have very nicely put. But I think at the level of perceptions and ideas, this we have to fight. Otherwise, it will become just natural for everybody, both in the EU and the Western Balkans, to think that, well, it doesn't need to be the case. We can be somewhere else. We can be with Russia, with China, or we can be without the Western Balkans. The EU can do without them. So this for me is crucial. What to do about it? Obviously, I would like to hear more from our colleagues, especially the younger colleagues from the Western Balkans. I would say the Western European and the entire EU societies are changing. The EU is changing. Rather than hoping that they will change in a way that will make the Western Balkans will be even more welcoming than in the past towards the Western Balkans, which I don't expect that will happen anytime soon. I think the Western Balkans, and especially civil society and grassroots level activists and actors, should try to show to the EU that they are and should be part of uniting Europe. They should show that they should speak to the sensitivities and the concerns of the EU. They should show the EU that Europe will not be united without the Balkans, or that they need the Balkans for a number of issues. They should give ideas about energy transition, about the role of technology in our lives, about the issues that are of top priority these days, trade wars, you name it, social media. These are the top priorities nowadays in Brussels, and they will not change in the coming years. And with respect and with apologies to Dietmar, I don't think these ideas will come from the politicians of the region. They will come from civil society, from professionals, from intellectuals, young scientists who find their way to Western European countries, from diaspora, from pop stars, from Kosovo, pop stars. So we should get good news from the Balkans, and the Balkans should show that they are a precious part of Europe, and they can speak to contemporary concerns, not the concerns of the 1990s. Please let us in, because we will kill each other if not. So that's all from me, and I would like to hear more and to contribute more for the next hour or so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nevena, do you want to continue?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really such a pleasure to be with such an impressive panel of speakers. My name is Nevena Todorović. I work at the Youth Initiative for Human Rights at the Belgrade office here in Serbia, and we're actually a network of organizations working in Kosovo, Macedonia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Croatia and Serbia. And I think Donika put it perfectly. Many of the issues that we have going on here, that and of course, what goes on in Kosovo is very connected to what goes on in Serbia. And I will preface by saying that the issues in the Western Balkans are too many to list in even 2 hours. And they are so diverse and so complex that it's really hard to pinpoint what are the main ones and what are the best solutions. But I will focus on something that has time and time again been listed by the EU as an impediment to accession and European integrations in the Western Balkans. And that's what they would call outstanding bilateral disputes. And in a region with a not so distant war that has left very tangible trauma and open wounds even to this day, I would say that calling it a dispute is a grave understatement. It has become a very strong political tool for boosting nationalist sentiment to achieve, nationalist propaganda and nationalist political agenda. And particularly in the Serbian context, it's something that has resulted in a rising clerofascism that can be noticeable, especially among youth, and youth radicalization is unfortunately something that is also on the rise here. And these are things that I think the sooner we realize that they impact all of the general situation of human rights, that they cause other human rights breaches and impediments to the realization of our freedoms and rights in the country and the region, the sooner we can begin to tackle it as a whole. But I don't think that even though this is something that, the EU perceives us as basically the other Europe because we have this stain on our past, I think it's something that very much influences politics today, and especially those political elites. I mean, those are people who were very active in the 90s and who still call the shots today. And if we ever want to resolve this issue, and we should do it not only for that golden ticket of EU membership, but for our own societies, if we actually want to be democracies. And what I see as a potential solution here is something that has been advocated for by civil society here for a long time, and that's the establishment of a regional Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which I think would be a crucial step towards bringing justice to victims and survivors, launching very important processes such as reparations, war crimes proceedings, and beginning a culture of reconciliation and healing in the region. And another thing I think would be really important is for the European Union to understand that it does still have some power of external influence that it could use to help the governments in the region collaborate more with civil society here, to carve out a path for civil society representatives to be at that table when we're discussing, when we're developing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, when we're discussing these crucial topics, because let's face it, our governments are not gonna include us ourselves. And maybe through that, we can begin to resolve many of the still existing issues to counter this nationalist, moment that has been going on for 20 plus years. And maybe we can finally have a real dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade, because right now, let's face it, it's two monologues going on at the same time. So that's my 2 cents on the situation, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Onion Markovic, I hope I pronounced you right. Do you want to continue?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thanks to organizers for invitation to joining this event, and thank you very much on behalf of the Regional Cooperation Council and Western Balkans Youth Lab project. I am Ognjen Marković, project expert, and within the project we are actually focused on youth and enhancing formal and non-formal mechanisms of youth participation in Western Balkan 6. So basically we are working with governments and national youth councils and youth umbrella organizations in the region to actually provide more opportunities for young people in to actually be involved in decision-making processes. And actually, we just kick off with the first youth policy lab based on the EU Youth Dialogue, which is something that happens for the first time in the region, and we are really looking forward to involving as much as possible young people in the youth policy labs, which actually represents the safe space for young people and policymakers to discuss and later on work together to draft policies as well as to implement them. So basically, of course, when it comes to the topics that organizers have asked us to discuss today, as Donika said, it's really hard to put everything in a couple of minutes because this is a topic for a couple of hours. And definitely, I would like to highlight the importance of youth participation, having in mind especially that 50% of youth in the Western Balkans do not even discuss policy decisions or decisions of the governments, while 32% of the young people do not want to be publicly exposed. Still, when it comes to European integration of the Western Balkan 6, I want to highlight and say that we can actually see many steps forwards when it comes to Western Balkans and European integration, having in mind especially economic and investment plan that EU has adopted worth 9 billion euros to the Western Balkans if the Western Balkan 6 create common regional market, which RCC has facilitated the whole process after the developing common regional market, which Western Balkan 6 leaders have adopted in Sofia summit back in November 2020. I think that we are, of course, all fully aware that European integration process is not the fastest one, but regardless, we cannot stop and complain about it, especially since I think that sectoral integration of the Western Balkan 6 in the EU single market is a good way, actually, not to be stuck in a sort of a blame game that Western Balkans is not doing reforms, or on the other side, for example, that EU does not want to enlarge. It is very important, and I would say, having in mind the background of the RCC's project that is funded by European Commission, it is very important for us, especially young people, to have European universities initiatives opened to all Western Balkan 6. Thus, we also need to work on the mobility of students, researchers, professors between the EU and Western Balkans and gradually actually expand this mobility to other sectors. But still, we cannot speak about free movement if all Western Balkan 6 economies actually cannot do it due to visa liberalization processes and similar. Still, in order to expedite the current dynamics of the European integration of the Western Balkans, I believe that we need to have a kind of restored credibility of the process. We need indicators, and we actually have to have more clear and more measurable criteria on the, let's say, rule of law, free movements, and similar, so that we actually can track the progress accordingly. And of course, regional cooperation is the key. And I believe that the region will look very, and I hope that the region will look very different in 2024 with the implementation of the common regional market. And what is actually encouraging, maybe not just for us here on this event tonight, but also to everyone in Western Balkans, is that 61% of the youth aged 18-24, according to Balkan Barometer, commissioned by RCC and supported by European Commission, actually tends to agree that what brings Western Balkan citizens together is more important than what separates them. On the other side, 43% of this group consider as a good thing having young people from other parts of the region coming to live and work in their economy. And I will conclude with saying that really, when it comes to youth participation and what we could actually see through implementing this project is that understanding, working together, and regional cooperation should definitely be always one of the key grounds for the common goal of all Western Balkan 6 economy, which is the integration in the European family. Thank you very much, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. Blerina, I know that you have some slides you want to share with us.
Hello everyone. Actually, I changed my mind because some of them were discussed, but I will point out the data which were part of the slides I have already prepared to share with you. My name is Blerina Hoxha. I represent here the Youth Act organization based in Tirana. We are focused in working with youth, not only in Albania, but also with youth who are part of other country in Western Balkan. Thank you very much for the invitation. I had the pleasure to hear the speech of Mr. Brushati. Also, I wanted to highlight the sentence said from Mrs. Donika Emini that when we talk about the EU integration, everything should come from within. So we need to be ready to be part of the European Union. But since we are talking here about the youth generation, and since I'm part of the higher education, I wanted to point it out the two main problems in my point of view when we talk about the youth generation, which are the better education and the labor or job opportunity here in Albania. Was mentioned before from Mr. Ioannis that we should not let everything in the hands of the public administration. We should involve our hands to give the help regarding the European integration, or to be more involved in the in everything. That I wanted to point it out some data regarding we have the highest level of people, the youth generation who lives abroad. 29% of diaspora, of Albania diaspora, are people from 14 to 29 years old. So the brain drain theory, actually the brain drain practice is very high in Albania. So we need better practice for brain gain. So we need to give youth generation to come back, a reason to come back in in our country, and also we need better job opportunity regarding the youth generation in our country. Since regarding the level of the wages, we have the lowest level of the wages in Western Balkan country. Talking here for the minimum wages and also the average wages. Since this is the one of the reasons why youth generation leave our country and they study and also they work abroad. Regarding the European integration, Albania European integration, I don't want to add something more because the speaker previously they talking up.
Thank you very much. Kreshnik, it's your turn.
Good evening. I know it sounds strange that you see two of me, but I have some issues with the mic of the laptop, so I'm connected in both. Good evening to all of you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to actually be part of this forum where I'm learning so much already, only in 1 hour, and where I see people come from different dimensions and from different spheres in life, trying to contribute to the same topic. And I think this should also be the motto of the EU integration in each country of the Western Balkans, but also together, where actually we need a multidimensional approach in order to achieve our goal. And it cannot be done alone. It cannot be done only by the state or civil society or only the young people, but it has to come from all of them putting their forces together towards their own goal. As I said, my name is Kreshnik. I have an experience in civil society and public administration, but I'm currently working for the Regional Youth Cooperation Office, and I've been working in youth field for the last 5 years, 6 years of my career. And actually my introduction is quite connected to also the topic, the challenge and the solution, because I would like to merge them together, but also to also mention maybe only one point of the challenges, also based on the work that the organization I'm working for is doing now, which is exactly this part of reconciliation of the Western Balkan 6 countries, and the importance also highlighted by the European Union of neighborhood relationship and repairing the narratives of the past when it comes to the Western Balkans. And I fully agree with what was also by Nevena, because our point when it came to reconciliation was right, very right, when it comes to the severity and the trauma that is left to our region. And actually, even though the idea of having an organization who was going to provide youth exchanges among the Western Balkan young people is not something that started from the government, but it's an idea that civil society has been having for more than 10 years in the region. And even though we have several networks of organizations, we are happy that there was a political momentum where all the governments of the Western Balkan 6 came together and agreed to create RICO, the Regional Cooperation Office, as an institution who is going to support in a structured way, in a structured manner, youth exchanges in the Western Balkans. And actually through these youth exchanges to promote the idea of tolerance, of respect, to start changing the narrative of the young people when it comes to the past, and also to start creating a better present and a better future for all of us in the Western Balkans. I think that giving the possibility, as we are doing now, to the young people of the Western Balkans, the possibility of mobility in the region is quite important, because we are opening a new window in their mind when it comes to possibility of traveling inside the Western Balkans, something that has been seen unimaginable only a few years ago or 10 years ago. And this is for sure a start of change in mentality, when you give the possibility to young people to actually go and meet their own peers in all the Western Balkan countries, young people from Kosovo to Serbia, to Bosnia and Herzegovina, to North Macedonia. And this is a very important sphere where we have to actually increase our contribution in order to make these meetings, to make these exchanges as much as possible, because only this way young people can actually see from themselves what is the difficulties, the challenges that also their peers in the region are confronted with. And of course, the work that Regional Cooperation Office cannot be complete in case it's not supported by the work that the RCC is doing, that the regional networks are doing, and we should all work together, complementing each other when it comes to the joint road to establish, of course, a lost relationship between our countries, but to also use this as a strong point to create a stronger region, a more connected region, a more strong economic region that can actually be fully accepted when it comes to the EU. I would like to say that it is very important, and we, through our youth exchanges, until now we have had more than 100 projects that we have been supporting throughout the Western Balkans. And just to give some numbers, because I think that they are important to actually show the interest that we have now in the Western Balkans for regional cooperation. These 100 projects are more than 400 NGOs and high schools who have been connected together to implement this project. And this is again translating to the more 5,000 young people who already in the last 3.5 years had the chance to exchange and to go through the Western Balkans. But this is only what we have been supported, but there are also more than 800 applications which we have received through our work in the last 3 years, and this is again translating to more than 1,000 of NGOs and networks and high schools who applied in our calls. This is a very, very important number, because we see that civil society, as always, who is initiator of change, not only in the Western Balkans but in the global scene, want to work together, want to change the current situation in their own communities, and doing this by adding the regional perspective, so by applying for regional projects. And I think it's very important to keep the support and to actually keep promoting these values of the youth cooperation in the Western Balkans, because it's very sad when you ask young people, even from Albania, if they want to travel to Belgrade, and you hear a no, which is unfortunately not based on argumentation, because they do not know why they don't want to go there. So it's very important for us to put our resources to actually talk about the past, talk about the joint past that we had as post-communist countries, and to understand the trauma that has left to our young people, and to do this in a structured way with the right people to actually guide the youth in these kind of discussions. So I think that, as I said in the beginning, this should be done in a multidimensional approach. We as RICO are doing this through granting, but also through volunteering schemes, social entrepreneurship projects, in order to bring the young people of the Western Balkans together, and for them themselves to shape the present and the future of the Western Balkans. I will keep it short because I know that there are still a lot of people who need to do their part. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have Samia, and then we have Vuk and Lola left. So Samia, you want to continue?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Besides saying good evening, I will do the usual COVID greeting. Do you hear me? I hope you do. I'm calling from the city of Jajce, from central Bosnia. City of Jajce during the recent years has come into a public sphere due to its infamous ethnically segregated schools. 10 or a bit more than 10 years ago, I was also a student of one of those ethnically segregated schools here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We call them two schools under one roof, where students attend the same school building, but they have two separate entrances, separate classrooms, etc. And just 3 years ago, politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina tried to segregate even more schools. Currently, we have around 56 such schools operating throughout the country. And since then, there was a group of young people here in the city of Jajce in central Bosnia who has stood up against politicians trying to segregate the schools, and they have achieved something that has never been achieved in post-war Bosnia and Herzegovina. They have managed, through their own activism, they were minors, by the way, through their own activism, to prevent segregation of high schools and to directly oppose the political decision-making processes. Therefore, they were also honored with the 2018 Max van der Stoel Award by the OSCE and the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs for preventing segregation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This experience and even previous experiences that I took part made me into formed me basically. The education itself in segregated system formed me into what I am today, a human rights activist, I would call myself. And here I would just try to address some of the points that haven't been addressed related to young people and to education. Besides being a human rights activist dealing with fighting segregation, I'm also involved with the Western Balkans Alumni Association. It's a very unique regional organization that gathers young people who have studied abroad as scholarship holders of various EU and other programs. And I'm glad to see my colleague Stefan from the regional board also attending this meeting. And this organization has been bringing together those young people who have studied abroad as Erasmus students, who have studied abroad on various scholarship schemes. They brought them together in the region and brought them together to network, to empower them and to cooperate for a simple reason. We have noticed that even those young people who have studied abroad, usually coming from the Western Balkans, they wouldn't even meet in the Western Balkans. Usually they would meet somewhere abroad, far away from the country, from their own homelands, on a neutral ground. And as an organization, as an association, we thought this is a moment in history that to bring those young people together. Just last year, I took part in a common effort of 12 young people coming from the whole Western Balkans region to bring together 7 ideas for a prosperous Western Balkans. My favorite idea out of these 7 ideas was related to education and regional mobility. I will be happy to share with you the whole paper with whole 7 ideas, but here I would just like briefly to outline my favorite idea, which is related to regional cooperation in education. Believe it or not, for example, if you're a student studying at the University of Sarajevo, or let's say at the University of Belgrade, it's virtually impossible for you to go for a study exchange program between these 2 countries. So I studied at the University of Sarajevo, and there was no possibility for me to go for a study exchange for 1 semester or 2 semesters at none of the Western Balkans countries. I did 5 study exchange programs abroad in the EU and Turkey. During the last 7 years, I have studied and worked in 7 countries on 3 continents, but never within the region. And this is also one of the problems that we have faced. We have analyzed and seen in our paper. And what we have suggested is that the EU, together with the regional authorities, boosts and kickstarts a so-called Erasmus Plus for the Balkans. What is an Erasmus Plus for the Balkans? It's a unique program that would allow students within the Western Balkans to go to study within the Western Balkans, that would allow students from Belgrade to come to Bosnia and Herzegovina, students from Bosnia to go to Kosovo, etc. However, on this path, we have also recognized some of the big challenges and obstacles for student mobility. One of the biggest ones, just an example that I just mentioned, students from Bosnia going to University of Kosovo, for example, University of Pristina, almost impossible because of the visa regime. Therefore, we also call the authorities of Bosnia and Herzegovina, first and foremost, authorities of Bosnia and Herzegovina and authorities of Kosovo, to abolish this nothing but a very bad, so to say, and regime that hinders young people to go across the border. Very important. Additionally, exchange of students in high schools. And I'm not speaking here only about non-formal education. I'm also speaking about formal education, that we have groups of students going from one country to another, spending 1 year or even more at a foreign country. And I will just like to conclude that what I usually hear from, not just from people in the Western Balkans, but also from international experts, is that usually they call for young people, that young people will solve the problems of the Western Balkans. I do not agree completely with that. Currently in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we do have young people who are in politics. However, they are sometimes even more nationalistic than their political fathers and mothers. So what we need are not new people in politics. What we need are new policies, and new policies in the region will be brought by politicians who will have new democratic, prosperous ideas, liberal ideas that will give a new opportunity, new horizons, not just to young people, but also to older population. And it's not just young people leaving. We don't have just brain drain. We have also muscle brain. And I totally agree with some of the people who already mentioned, it's not just politicians who should take care about our country, about politics. It's also civil society. Generally speaking, politics is just too serious and too important of a matter to be just given straight in the hand of politicians. And therefore, I really applaud your initiative to bring these young people to one table to discuss these ideas, these initiatives. And I really hope nothing but that we will continue on talking these initiatives, because I really think without united young people of the Western Balkans, we will also have no united Western Balkans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samia. Thank you for your input. Vuk, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Vuk Velebit. I'm from Belgrade, Serbia, and I'm a civic activist and a foreign policy analyst. I have organized and participated in many anti-regime gatherings in Belgrade and around Serbia in last several years, and I'm also a member of New Generations for New Balkans initiative led by Hane Svoboda and International Institute for Peace from Vienna. Before going to briefly talking about EU and Western Balkans, I would just suggest that next time if we organize some gathering like this, we maybe do it in a few smaller groups, because I'm not sure that it's the productive way, like more than 20 people talking in 1 hour and a half. So that would be just my suggestion. And regarding EU and Western Balkans, I think that one of the reasons why the whole region is stuck on their European path is basically that there are no strong incentives for leaders in the region to reform our societies, both politically, economically, to strengthen the rule of law with independent institutions, and to lead the region to the EU. On the other side, I would say that there is also no incentive in the EU when we talk about European future of the region. I would just read you one sentence, basically the statement recently made by European Commissioner for Enlargement and Neighborhood, Oliver Varhelyi, who said, speaking about Serbian government, he said that Serbian government now have a unique opportunity to lead the reforms in the field of rule of law and media to strengthen media freedoms, because current Serbian government have like absolute majority in Serbian parliament. And I think that in this statement, you can see everything wrong about EU stand towards Serbia, and I would say towards other countries in the region. Because if EU officials do not criticize what our leaders and governments do for the last years, and speaking about Serbia for the last 8 years since Aleksandar Vučić and SNS came to power, and you start criticizing European Parliament and European Commission from time to time. So basically, you're telling Serbian citizens that Serbian government is doing everything good when we speak about reforms and when we speak about European integration. So I think that by doing that, we are living illusion, we are living European illusion. And even though I believe that both Serbia and other countries in the region, that we do not have like alternative to the EU, I do not believe that this region would become member of the EU recently or ever. And I think that this is not like a pessimistic statement. I think it is very realistic based on what we can see, what's happening, like about authoritarianism, about nationalism, about media freedoms, about civil rights in our countries. In some countries, things are changing a bit, like in Montenegro, we will see what would happen in North Macedonia as well. But for example, last year, Serbia, for the first time, didn't open any chapter, which is like the most clear sign, like where we are heading when we speak about EU integrations. And also, I would strongly agree with some of the statements made by Mr. Bushati, that the crucial thing in the coming period would be that we speak more about economy, to speak more about investments, building better infrastructure, and connecting ourselves in the region. Because even if we think that tomorrow the whole region become the member of the EU, I think that nothing would basically change if we do not change our societies prior to becoming members of the EU. If we become the members, I think that people would just easily leave our countries. What happened basically to Romania and Bulgaria, and go to Western European countries to find better life and better work. So I think that the most important thing would be to basically to create a European environment in our countries before becoming members of the EU. And what is also important, and I will finish, is that EU should also, both EU and all of us who are like EU voices in our countries, we should change our communication. We should speak more clearly so each citizen can understand what life in EU means, that we stop speaking about chapters, about forms and all the technical aspects of the process. And we start speaking about everyday life, to start speaking about that being a member of the EU means better education, better infrastructure, being able to travel around and to work. So people really like have like a feeling of what being European means. And yeah, that would be everything from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I totally agree that 1.5 hours is not enough to discuss all the topics. So if it's okay for you, we can extend the session till 8:30. But you can leave whenever you want. We're happy to have you all, but we can extend the session because, yeah, the time is not enough. You're right. So before Lola ends the introduction round, I totally forgot that we have Felicitas with us, and maybe she wants to scoop in and takes the turn before Lola ends the introduction round.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for getting the chance to speak, even though we don't have enough time. Obviously, I would first like to thank you for this nice invitation, and also my dear colleague Anna Abdi for, proposing me to join this round. And yeah, my name is Felicitas Fotinos. I'm 30 years old, and I'm half Greek, half German. So I basically represent both sides, and the Balkans as well. And my expertise lies in Asia. I have graduated from the East Asia Institute with a Bachelor of International Business Management, China, and later I did my master's at the University of Cologne in Regional Studies, China. And in 2020, I had the chance to represent my country, Greece, within the European Parliament as a holder of the Francis Walz internship. And I worked for the International Trade Committee Americas within the S&D group. And Anna, who I know from our time working within the European Parliament, and I have set ourselves a goal to build a bridge as young, let's say, political activists, to build a bridge between yeah, Greece, Albania, the Balkans, and the European Union. And yeah, we have, yeah, we believe as young European activists that it is very urgent to integrate the Balkans into the EU, that there is, of course, there are many, still many issues, as everybody has already mentioned, like the, yes, let's say, yeah, that there's still corruption, that that there's still a lot of, there's no separation of, let's say, political power, and so on and so on. And though I see a huge potential, I'm more of an optimist, and I see a huge potential in the integration of the Balkans into the EU. I see how urgent it is. Yes, and how, as everybody already said, important it is that young Europeans like us involve into this process. And yeah, I believe that everybody should be active and bring forward very direct and concrete project proposals. So I believe in doing instead of talking only. And yes, Anna and I have already worked on this vision. We had the chance to, yes, propose, yes, a project proposal concerning the integration of the Balkans into the EU. Yeah, we somehow developed an European Institute for Economic and Social Development. And we did this proposal within the parliament. So we have been active, and from our research, I wanted to stress out one single point that was missing in this round. I think what makes the integration of the Balkans into the EU is also the rising interest, so urgent, is also the rising interest of many countries like China, Russia, and Turkey into the region recently, and all these big investments that are happening, and all the influence from this more or less, let's say, undemocratic countries into the region. We cannot afford anymore to, yeah, let's say, lose time and not integrate the Balkans into the EU. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Lola, let's wrap it up and then discuss.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me on this panel. It's truly a privilege to discuss important problems, obstacles, solutions to the issues of the European integration in the Western Balkans from the youth perspective. I have listened to the other panelists before at many different events and panels, so therefore being a part of this Europe Jam is quite great. I'm Lola Paunović, Youth Council Representative at the National Government of Serbia, but more importantly, I'm a junior researcher at the European Policy Center, CEP, from Belgrade. CEP is a non-governmental independent think tank founded by a group of professionals in the areas of EU law, EU affairs, economics, public administration, reform, etc. The team works with the vision of improving policymaking and environment in Serbia by rendering it more evidence-based and making it more open and more inclusive and more substantially EU accession driven. CEP has been the highest ranked think tank in Central and Eastern Europe for two years in a row. We are a part of the Make Future Together EU and the Western Balkans from the Youth Perspective project alongside our Think for Europe network think tanks from the region. As we have previously heard from all the other panelists and all the other participants, we're all quite aware that the EU and the Western Balkans share common problems and challenges, which makes it quite clear to me, and I guess to all of us, that the two are quite interdependent when it comes to having them as well as resolving them. However, over the years, the region has been perceived by the European public sphere as a troublemaker, as most of the topics commonly discussed by the European media address some of the negative topics about the region, which some of the other panelists have already mentioned. What I mean by this is they're typically related to crime networks, unfounded asylum applications from the region, interethnical tensions, and many others. Such negative connotation is probably having a negative impact on the overall perception of the region among the citizens of the EU countries towards the Western Balkans. So European Policy Center, CEP, as a part of the project that I already said, Make Future Together, EU and the Western Balkans from the youth perspective, is demonstrating how the region can actually come together and make a constructive input in resolving discussed issues. Our network of think tanks has been a pioneer example of effective regional cooperation among the region's civil society organizations. So prior to the project, we were quite aware that there is a rise in Euroscepticism among the general population, especially among the youth population, and some of the panelists already have indicated the numbers. Therefore, we focused on the youth because we recognize that there is a significant window of opportunity to have the issue of not only enlargement, but also the topics such as environment, internet freedoms, democracy, rule of law, and many others pushed onto the agenda, and to encourage the youth to take an active part in consultations that might influence policy and decision making at both national and EU levels, thanks to the activities of the project. So the main takeaways from the consultations in the project that were held are as follows. So firstly, the youth wants more space to voice their opinions and for their voices to be heard. They need to be heard. They need to voice their frustrations, their visions of the future. Secondly, they want to actively engage in resolving political and social issues. And lastly, the youth is very upset with the institutions for not giving them a voice and in decision making, and their trust in them is exponentially declining because of it. Therefore, the solutions that were suggested and that we found were opening up spaces for participation on both local and national levels, increasing numbers of dialogues and consultations, and creating a strong social media presence where different views can be heard and where the youth can become even more engaged in the EU integration process, but also help the process through it and even get more integrated within the Western Balkan region, because as many panelists have suggested, we're not as integrated as we should be, both economically, politically, and socially. But yeah, I'm available to speak more about the ways in which we engage with the youth if anyone is interested, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your input. I know it took a while, but you had many important things to say. I know that Anna and Hannes did not explicitly answer the questions, but if it's okay with you, we start into the discussion. Oh, Hannes, you want to say something?
I could say something in the framework of the discussion in reaction to what I've heard. If I can do it now or later, as you want.
Well, we could start into the discussion. I'm sure you can bring on your points there and tell us what your opinion is, if that's okay for you, because we have like 30 minutes left, and if that's okay for you.
Yeah, whenever, now or later.
Let's start into the discussion, and we can start with you. Yeah, maybe Anna, you want to continue and.
Yeah, Hannes, just go ahead and say your point.
Yeah, I do it briefly. I think 2 points just I want to mention in the discussion. The one is, I think it was Donika or somebody else who mentioned living in dignity. And I think, as Vuk also said, we should not speak about chapters and so on. You know, officials have to speak about it, but I think we should enforce on everybody to say, why is it not that people, especially the young generation, cannot live in dignity in most of the countries? Lack of rule of law, not respect for democracy, not a high quality education, the environmental situation. Very often, if you think about the air you can breathe in Sarajevo or in Belgrade or some other places, I think this should be the focal point, that the youth is not able to live in dignity and therefore very often they leave. And migration should not be a migration because I have to leave because I cannot live in dignity, but it should be because I can enlarge my knowledge, I can have a new job, at least for some time, what we call, there are many experts also amidst you, circular migration, because nowadays the EU says, okay, we need some people because we lack nurses and doctors, and then they lack in the country, not because we want to give them a chance to get more knowledge and more capabilities and capacities. So I think this is one of the points. And the second point I want to take up what Ioannis said about the connectedness, and other people said it as well. I think in my experience is, you know, you are in a waiting room and wait and do your job. And I think much more should be the EU involved already, all the elements, of course, the official element, but of the younger generation in the decision-making process. Of course, at the end of the day, you can decide if you're a member, but you can discuss many of the issues already now. Because I think, I don't know exactly who now mentioned it, okay, the colleague who has made the studies about China, I think Felicitas, China, Russia, Turkey already is here, and it seems to involve the countries more than sometimes the EU. If you look to the fact of investment, the EU is by far the largest and biggest investor. But if you look to the sentiments and to the engagement and to the presentation, what is happening, some of these countries do much more. So the EU must involve the countries more in decision-making. We cannot demand for Serbia or any other country to follow what the EU foreign policy is if we don't involve them more. Of course, that is in security, the environmental policy, health policy, for example, when we think about COVID. So I think these are the two elements. How can we strengthen the connectedness already in the process of integration, not only at the end of the day? And the second is, I think, especially the young generation, I think should insist that living in dignity is the central point, and so many other issues can be dealt with, and have the EU have to give an answer together, of course, with their own countries and their own governments. And I think that could be a focal point, because you cannot deal with all these chapters and whatever in the detail, but you can insist that finally you want to live in dignity, and the EU should do something to help for you to live in dignity in the region. So just two comments from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wants to comment on what Hannes just said, or what someone else said in the introduction round? Maybe someone who had not the opportunity yet to say something, maybe Stefan, or I don't know, anyone else who's joining us. Okay, so maybe Danica, we had to cut you off during your introduction, right? Would you maybe just want to go ahead with what you said before?
No, actually, I mean, that was all. I was hoping that we would, as citizens, but also our political elites, would really understand the importance of regional cooperation, because in Kosovo, we have also had a lot of discussions about regional cooperation, mini Schengen, and what do we get from it, and how is it like gonna kill the smaller states, because the region is like small indeed, but also like there is a fear that even in a small region you can be smaller and would not benefit from opening your economy to others. I don't know. I mean, Yanis was right, and I keep talking to my friends who serve as ambassadors here, and they keep saying that we should definitely showcase the other side of the Balkans, which is not our political leaders. We are the young people who have been successful. I mean, I see a lot of startups that have been successful. Unfortunately, they usually initiate all and do the work here, and then gets sold out to other companies in elsewhere operating outside of the Balkans. this is something that, you know, no one is talking about, how the future in the region, and this is very much concerning. I mean, we see electoral processes, we see slight changes or not, but at the end of the day, I do believe that the situation has worsened. I mean, if I look at Kosovo, but also the entire region, it's the future seems grim, and we don't know how to contribute. Dietmar mentioned, I mean, Yanis mentioned the civil society component, which I've been working with in the past 10 years. Unfortunately, it's almost impossible to make an impact from civil society. I mean, you push for so long, and you waste all the energy, and it's rarely taken into consideration by the political elites. On the other side, if you want to be part of the politics, then, you know, the system somehow suffocates you. You become part of the system. I've been witnessing many professionals from civil society who have joined political parties, made it to the parliament, became ministers, and they ended up just being like, you know, the system. They didn't have the chance, and they didn't have the space, and there is no will from the political parties to actually change. That's why once you go there, you just become part of it, and it's rarely that you can change something if you become part of political parties. So doing things from track 2, it's interesting, it's dynamic. I mean, it's without borders. I mean, I've been cooperating with people from Serbia so many times, which I wouldn't probably have the chance to do if I wasn't in civil society, or Bosnia, countries which I cannot travel to with my Kosovo passport, or it's like a lot of hustles to travel to. But then, you know, the changes and the opportunities that we have to change the system are kind of slower and inexistent.
Yes, thank you very much, Danica. Anna, please go ahead.
Yes, since I didn't have the opportunity to add my points, I think the topic is very broad to be discussed only in 2 hours. But yeah, as we mentioned, the main issue, also from the colleagues that speak before me, is the brain drain phenomena, and I'm part of the group that is still optimistic about the integration of Balkans in European Union, and I don't like the fact that also from the governmental side, people point fingers to the EU, but also from the EU, they point fingers to the governments. I think that is very complex as a process, since it has to have a willingness from both sides. But in my modest experience, since we're facing this phenomenon of brain drain, I think that a strong focus should be on diaspora. I'm taking the Albanian example. Albania has 1.5 million diaspora, and it's very well integrated in the respective countries. And all of this is a result as their own investments, and is their, you know, it's on their, based on what they have achieved on their own. Since we didn't have a Ministry of Diaspora, and there wasn't a straight strategy towards the integration of our people in the respective countries. Considering that Albania has also, let's say, a very short path towards democracy, since it was closed and it was under the communist regimes till the 90s, I think that it has done a great progress towards the integration in the countries, and it has a very difficult path. So I think it has a huge potential, so we should see it as a positive thing and not as a negative thing, the diaspora thing, and we should see that how the diaspora should be part of this change, and how it should be part of the integration process, because I think it can give a great support, and we should not see it, the integration process, talking in the Albanian perspective, only as something that Albania profits from the EU, but also EU should see Albania as something, the integration of Albania in the European family as something they can profit from. because it's rich in resources, and not to brag, but not only the Albanians, but also people from the region, seen from my experience, are very well prepared. And it's not, I think that I can count also on Hannes, that has an European experience, that the young people from the region are well prepared, and they do not differ much from the young professionals in working in EU institutions or maybe in civil society. So maybe how to tackle these issues of integration, and also the brain drain phenomena, is building some bridges between countries, in my case Albania, but it might apply also for other countries as Kosovo, Serbia, and Bosnia, Montenegro, building a bridge between diaspora, which is I think very well integrated in EU countries, and not only, and the governments, and how they can give their professional backgrounds and what they have achieved so far into to give it as into their countries, to give a contribution, a direct contribution. So maybe we can bring some change, and maybe it might take time, but I believe that it's if we find the right ways to do this, we can achieve good things in the future, also in the dimension of development, but also for the integration. So basically, this is it.
Thank you very much. Anyone likes to comment on that?
Yes, my name is Yonida. Can I?
Yeah, of course, go ahead.
I followed with interest all the discussions, and I'm very glad to participate in this activity. I live in North Macedonia, but I'm Albanian, and I would like to connect with Anna. She mentioned the Ministry of Diaspora. I want to add that there needs to be done much better work from this ministry, because me as an Albanian living in North Macedonia, I am a testimony of discriminations going on regarding some legislations for persons that are from Albania and come here. And I had this question mark if I should write I should ask for the help of the Ministry of Diaspora, but unfortunately, I have my doubts if they are going to respond and help Albanian citizens elsewhere in the region, but not wanting to have only prejudices, I'm going to do so. But I think that both of us, all the regions, Balkan or Eastern European countries that are aiming to join the big European family, should meet in reality the Copenhagen and the Madrid criteria, and not just pretend like discrimination does not exist between ethnicities, especially in countries with several ethnicities, because in Albania there is not such a problem. Or at least the number of the percentage of minorities, ethnicities is very small, and it's not felt like here in North Macedonia. But as well, I think that a real and transparent job needs to be done by governments in order to not just sign agreements in lots of areas, but in order to really help the citizens to engage and operate and work together. Because, for example, in Albania, our loving Prime Minister had this saying that Albania have lots of jobs, but there is lack of professionals. And how come the Albanian people where go outside, they become so much professional, and they get a well-paid job in well-known organizations? So let's put down the hypocrisy, even here in North Macedonia, where they are saying that the discrimination does not exist. We are a country that gives equal opportunity to each person. So I think that a more transparent, realistic, and a job that aims the furthering of the region as a whole, or better opportunities for young people, and not only for the region as a whole, leaving behind political issues, ethnic complexes. And I love the part where some of the I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, some of the participants said that when Albanians are being asked, are you going to visit Serbia? They say no. I'm an Albanian and I would love to visit Serbia. We have to leave behind this mentality and the, even though painful history that that our countries have, and we as young, open-minded citizens of the European or young citizens that are aiming to join the big European family, we should visit each other, collaborate with each other. And I really think so. It's not like kind words that I want to say, because there are some Serbian in the room. Thank you.
If I may, since there was a question for me.
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Okay, Yonida, nice to meet you, although I cannot see your face since you're muted.
It's not appropriate for me to open the camera for the moment. I'm sorry for this. Sorry.
Okay, so first of all, regarding your question, I do not represent the government. I'm a researcher on Western Balkans and EU enlargement, but as you mentioned, you haven't tried because you were skeptical. I think you should try, because I sent some initiatives since I'm doing the researches to the Ministry of Diaspora, and I got a very positive feedback. And not because of my previous background, because I can tell you that even if, when I had a position in the Socialist Party, I met people that were also from my party that opened the door and also you know, gave me a hand and also contributed in my professional background. But on the other hand, I met people that closed doors to me. So I think that it's not about the instrument. It depends much on the individuals, because we cannot respond on individual level. The thing is, the goodwill is there. And I think that from the Ministry of Diaspora, you might have some positive feedback. And I think that they would very much appreciate if you could get in touch with them. I could say the same thing even for European level and the EU structures. I got promoted in the S&D group as an Albanian citizen, and I had opportunities that even EU citizens didn't have. That was based on merit and based on my professional background. On the other hand, there were people working in the EU embassy here in Albania that didn't make the right distinction between the Ionian Sea and the Adriatic, and they were spreading hate speech about Albanians in their social networks. So I didn't put a stereotype and say that the whole European Union is like that, because I very much know that every individual in the end of the day represents itself. As for the government, even for the civil society, even in the institutions, we don't have to stereotype from one experience to stereotype or everything. So I think this is the right thing to do. So I believe that as young people, it's our obligation to be more optimistic and to give a try. Of course, the path is not that easy. I mean, especially what we are trying to do, and especially Western Balkan, that is a big trouble for bigger politicians. And I think it's fair enough that we give a try and be the catalysts of change, and not wait for good words from people that have done previous work like Hannes. And they should not be our motivators. We should motivate them to support us, and we should be the ones that should engage them. So This is my point, and I think you should give it a try as Albanian in Macedonia to connect and to address your problem, because otherwise you wouldn't know if they will respond positively or negatively. But don't assume, please.
Thank you very much, Anna. Does anyone else has a question or another comment or anything like it? Okay, so, well, I think we've come to an end for our session then. I would like to thank each and every one of you for sharing your ideas and thoughts on this topic. It was very, very interesting to hear all of your ideas, and yeah, special thanks especially to Anna for coming to us with the idea for a Europe Jam on the Western Balkans. It was a blast, really. We will upload this session on our YouTube channel if you'd like to watch it again or share it with your network. And also, yeah, next week we'll have our last jam, our final jam, to wrap up our discussion series about the future of Europe. And we want to talk about the upcoming conference on the future of Europe. And of course, all of you are invited to join again, and hopefully see you next week, same place, same time. And thanks again for being here, and have a nice evening.